Welcome, fabulous leaders. And today I'm going to be talking about empathy, the competitive edge in leadership. Now, today we're diving headfirst into how empathy, yes, empathy, can set you apart as a leader in a world where cold efficiency is no longer enough, right? So, spoiler alert, robots might automate tasks, but they'll never automate trust and collaboration. And I think that's our superpower. So today I'm really going to be exploring the world of empathy. And you know what? Throughout this session, you'll learn how to really embrace empathy like the competitive edge it truly is. Because the future of leadership isn't barking orders, it's about inspiring people to do their best work by showing them you get them. Okay, so let's ditch right. Stiff old school models of leadership and embrace the human side of leadership. So, are you ready to unlock your edge, which is empathy? So, let's go. And you know what? You can learn it. You can learn empathy. So, let's go. Okay. So, I want to talk about why empathy matters in leadership. But before I do, what is empathy? Like, how would you describe empathy? And a lot of people say to me, I would describe it as like being in someone else's shoes. However, it is, but it isn't. So I'm going to share my screen because I'm going to share with you something pretty cool. Okay. Tell me what you think of this video and around Brené Brown's. If you haven't followed her or know her work, make sure you reach out to her definition of empathy.
So what is empathy and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. At least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
And I love that. I love that around empathy, right? It's playing again. It's decided to play again. Anyway, definitely share that video. It's around sometimes you don't know what it's like to be in other people's shoes, but the thing is, it's about empathy. It's about validating and connecting with others. So why empathy matters in leadership? Okay, for me, empathy drives engagement, collaboration, innovation. And I think today, when we think about empathy, when we show empathy, it actually builds trust. And I think today it's not just a business necessity. It's actually a must-have. It is like key to businesses. It's like the fundamental core, the center pole of leadership. It's like, okay, yeah, all right, it's necessary to have empathy, but I think it's now part of how businesses and organizations need to grow and thrive is through being empathetic, right? It's just not a nice to have. And there's so many great leaders that have empathy. Like one in particular that I really love, and I'm a huge fan of, is Paul Scarra from Virgin. And you know, the way he dealt with Virgin Australia and the empathy and vulnerability he showed during that, and all the dealings I've had with Paul ever since getting to know him. I wrote about him in my book, First Comes Courage, and he's such an empathic leader. Is amazing. He has so much empathy. Now, I want to be real with you though for a second, right? No one likes working for a leader who acts like an emotionalist, like spreadsheet. You know the type, results only, people are optional, and it's like congrats, but also yikes, right? I think high performance teams want empathy. They want empathic leaders. And empathy is what separates the managers from the memorable leaders. Think about Satya Nadella from Microsoft, right? And again, I wrote about him in my book as well because of his empathy and growth mindset focus. When the company's culture was about as warm as Antarctica in winter, and if you read the research and case study around it, he leaned into empathy, actively listening, empowering his teams, and then boom, right? Microsoft became one of the most admired companies in the world. Here's the kicker. Empathy isn't soft, right? It's strategic. It's your secret sauce for driving engagement, retaining talent, and fostering innovation. So let's make it your superpower. The other thing I want to talk to you about, which I think, again, reflecting on that video by Brené Brown and how empathy is a superpower, and how it relates to trust. There's a great TED talk called The Trust Triangle, and it's a great framework. And she talks about the trust triangle: authenticity, logic, and empathy. What I'm going to do, because it's quite a long TED talk, I'm not going to show you the TED talk, but I'd really love you to listen to it, is I'm going to show you what it looks like so you know exactly. Let me have a quick look at videos. All right, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Let me just share my screen. Share screen, Windows. Okay, so this is what the TED Talk looks like by Frances Frey. And she definitely does talk about, and I'll just show you what it looks like. She does talk about in her TED Talk the 3 elements of building trust. And one of those is empathy. I believe you care about me and my success, in terms of that being core. She talks about the trust triangle, and if any of them wobble, then we lose trust. She also talks about authenticity. I experience the real you, and logic. I know you can do it, and your reasoning and judgment are sound. So she talks about empathy, authenticity, and logic. And I get it, right? Like, I think that those are actually key. So empathy fuels authenticity. I mean, people can actually spot a phony faster than you can say corporate jargon. And I think that also empathy can really build trust after a mishap as well. So when I think about trust, okay, let's talk about trust. You don't build trust by accident. It's like finding $5 in your coat pocket. It's not like finding $5 in your coat pocket. Trust comes from 3 things: authenticity, logic, and empathy. We call this the trust triangle, and I love that. I love the trust triangle because it's about authenticity being about those three elements. It's about being real. If you're faking it, people will know. Logic is about making sense. Don't be that leader who can't explain their decisions. And empathy, it's the glue. It shows you care and it makes people want to follow your lead. So let's talk about let's kind of play out a quick scenario here, right? Imagine you made a decision that upset your team. Maybe you didn't consult them or you missed the mark. Instead of brushing it off, you say, I hear you, I messed up, let's fix it together. I think that's where the trust triangle comes into action. It's not magic, it's leadership. Also, I want to just talk about a couple of other things when it comes to empathy that I think are absolutely key. First one is active listening, and the second one is emotional intelligence. So active listening in particular, like asking open questions, avoiding the temptation to interrupt, paraphrasing, I think is important. EQ is about having a radar around reading the room. And I think it's more important than ever. And I also call that social intelligence as well. So I want you to think about, like, when was the last time you truly listened to someone and what did you learn? You know, active listening is like the key. It's the superpower of leadership skills. And it's about how, if you want to be a great leader, be a great listener. But let's be honest, I think a lot of people suck at it. I think this is one of the reasons why as well. I think we get distracted so easily. And we're too busy thinking about our next response or mentally drafting our grocery list. For me, it's kind of like the brain fog is like, did I remember to feed the animals, or did I remember this? Like, I'm always checking and going, okay, like, anyway, we're always thinking about something else, distracted by something else. But I think here's how to slate listening. First, shut up. Zip it. So it's really important you zip it. Second, paraphrase what the other person has said. This shows that you're paying attention. And third, ask questions. It's not about solving their problem. It's about making them feel seen and heard. Actually, I was watching a Netflix show. What was it? I can't remember the Netflix show. It was really, really good. And she talks about one of the power tools around active listening is repeating the last 5 words the other person said and repeating it back to them. That's kind of like part of paraphrasing. It works a treat. And then there's like EQ, emotional intelligence. And I think this is part of like your leadership radar. I call it like my leadership kind of compass. Are you tuned in to how people feel? Or are you stomping through meetings like a bull in a china shop? High EQ leaders don't just read the room, they own it. So that's why it's really important to think about the energy in the room and the body language. And it's about fostering, I think for me, the key to building empathy and high performance teams is definitely trust and collaboration. And you know that empathy and trust are the new leadership styles. Celebrating team strengths and contributions, seeing that vulnerability isn't a weakness, it's a leadership flex. Okay. And also, I would highly recommend you create like a connection map where you can align goals and values of everyone in your team as well. I think that's really important. So team trust, and this is why trust and collaboration is so important, and how empathy is kind of like glues this all together, is team trust isn't built like, here's a free pizza and let's hang out in there. You know, it's about, it's built when people know you've got their back. Start by celebrating your team strengths. No one wants to feel like another cog in the machine. I'm a big one around Strengths Finder and doing strengths discussion. Recognize the contributions and know half-hearted good job doesn't count, right? It's really important that you be specific. And that like an example might be, right? And I use these different examples all the time. That report you pull together, amazing. Boom. Okay, love it. It shows that you really invested, that you really care, you really took notice, right? Instant trust points. Also, I think it's really important that we normalize vulnerability. Okay, you're not perfect all the time. No one is, even though you might think you are, you're not. And congratulations. When you are actually coming across that you're perfect all the time, it can be a little bit intimidating and unapproachable. Share your struggles, share your mistakes. It's not about oversharing. It's about leading with heart. Trust me, I can tell you now, your team will love it. So there's a lot of things I've talked about today, and just do a bit of a recap and some takeaways, right? Trust triangle. Look at like what empathy is about. Like, you might not know how they feel, but at least you're there and you're listening and connecting with them. Active listening, like truly be present. I call it active present listening. Celebrating strengths is so important. Get strengths finder, talk about strengths. Anyway, a bit of an action plan. I would start to think about what can you actually with your team challenge them with each week. Like, what can your team do to practice a new empathy skill this week? I'd love to know what you could do from what we've talked about today. So I think it's really important that you really embrace empathy, and it can be learned. And if you would love some new any resources and tools around that, let us know. Join the Leadership Collective or sign up to the Leadership Collective. We have got a 2025 year filled with events, free resources, free webinars. It's so cost effective, and you will not only join a community of like-minded great humans and leaders, you'll also get leadership resources and development. So, okay, I want to bring it home now, because empathy isn't just a buzzword, it's your leadership X factor. Whether you're using the trust triangle or you're mastering active listening or creating a culture of connection, I think you can use any of these tools to be a good leader and turn from a good leader into a great leader. This week, I want you to practice one empathy skill. Maybe it's listening better. It's being more human in your connections. I want you to think about how it changes the game, and hit me with your big ones, because I'm really here to help you make you unstoppable in this leadership space. Because I know if there was one thing I could tell my younger self, it would be to start learning leadership now. So tell me what you think. What are you going to put into action? Share this video, join the Leadership Collective, and reach out to the team at either Leadership HQ, the Leadership Collective, and we're always here to help you be a great leader. So remember to stay kind and courageous, and thank you for watching me today around empathy being your superpower. All right, take care. Bye.